sometimes when we're the most constrained, that's when we can see some of the most powerful work. And so I've seen a lot of students expressing themes of isolation, of quarantine, of sort of personal growth, and the anxiety, I think, of being in these spaces where we can't really go out and interact with people in the same sorts of ways. So it's been sort of a powerful artistic catalyst, I think, for some new work and some really unique and original types of production. And seen that both in the studio art and as well as in the digital side with some of the themes for our animations and our graphic designs. There's a lot of opportunities here at UCF for collaboration with other units, for creative and interdisciplinary types of projects. One of the things that's really interesting, I think, is that we've got this great research community where students who want to create fine art can go and create fine art in the studio, but then we've also got all these surrounding communities. So students get an opportunity to show their work in the gallery, they can do pop-up installations, they can be part of events like this, Celebrates the Arts, and really get their work in front of the community. Or they can go and collaborate in a research lab, and develop art assets for projects that might be funded by grants or for other types of interdisciplinary initiatives.
We have a range of faculty practicing in a range of media and under very different conceptual directions to each of them so that we can serve an incredibly wide range of students. They can find and meet that mentor who makes all the difference in their life and their future, help them make their dreams come true because this faculty member, this individual, has already been doing that.
Most recently, my work with our animation, our character animation and MFA students is truly rewarding. We've got great students, and the films that we've produced are award-winning and recognized really throughout the nation and actually worldwide.
Their work ethic and their ability to rise to the occasion under the kind of instruction that they're getting here is just amazing.
I think when you show something that you believe in them, and then they start kind of figuring out that they can believe in themselves, the output that they have is incredible. So from a student that is a little bit unsure of themselves the first year they're in the program, and then I see the same student when they graduate, it's like the change is incredible.
The arts need to be treated with the same kind of rigor that you would treat the sciences. That it's not just about hoping for inspiration to hit you and making something pretty and then hoping that people like you, that you have to go into the studio and treat it like work. It is work every day. The same way you will go and do experiments in the lab, the same way if you're a physicist, if you are a mathematician, there's a rigor that is expected of the arts, and then I hold you to that rigor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carla Poindexter, a professor of art at UCF, who teaches painting and other studio art courses to our graduate and undergraduate art students. My highly successful colleague is a contemporarily celebrated painter. Amir Kabaslia is the other professor who teaches painting full-time in our program. You are about to see a representation of paintings from some of our finest undergraduate BA and BFA students who have been studying in our painting program during their upper level years at UCF's School of Visual Arts and Design. Our program in painting and drawing is among the best in the nation, with a high percentage of our BFA students accepted into some of the most competitive graduate schools in art. For those students who move into the professional arenas of fine art and commercial art, our outstanding painting and drawing program has trained them to think creatively by solving a diverse array of concept-based problems while simultaneously building the formal skills they need to effectively communicate visually. The paintings in this slideshow were created during the past year while we all had to close our studio art classrooms at UCF and adapt to teaching and learning online and from home. Through twice weekly Zoom meetings, demonstrations, and group critiques. It is amazing how wonderfully our students adapted and rose to the challenge of learning to paint remotely. So it is particularly exciting for me to talk about the process of our painting students and what they go through to complete their works. First, It is important for the art viewing public to understand that, like all great historical artists, the best of today's contemporary painters are challenged to interpret and visually record the world at this particular time in history and in this particular place in the world from their particular points of view. They're asked to literally take responsibility as professionals to be this generation's visual record keepers of the times we're living in. So here's the process. It is not unlike working through the scientific method. Students are presented with a set of prompts and a visual problem to solve. The professor shows examples of historical and contemporary artists and former students' works that fits the theme. The students develop an idea based on their own knowledge, skills, and personal experiences. Then they investigate various possibilities through observation and recording. They settle on a color palette and they determine the appropriate scale of the canvas. And as they work on the actual painting, the process evolves through various stages, beginning with a basic drawing of the elements and the space on the canvas, followed by many applications of paint to build a successful surface and image. During their studio time of inventing and developing the painting, the students are consulting with their professors and their peers in small group discussions. When the paintings are finished, the class engages in a formal group critique of each of the works, where we all discuss the content and the form of the painting. These discussions are often lively and critically intense. The critique is followed by a 2 or 3 day opportunity for students to revise the painting until a successful solution is found. So in the advanced painting classes, students are usually asked to create 5, sometimes 6 paintings per semester. So that equals about 2.5 weeks for each painting. The paintings are intended to be rigorous and advanced. Every semester, the assignments are different, and the students are always presented with a new visual and conceptual problem in the form of a prompt. So an example of a prompt is what you are seeing on this slideshow. In this case, creating a meaningful family portrait or self-portrait. The second aspect of the prompt is to place the figures in an interior space in the home that supports the content of your idea. For each assignment, they are also asked to follow a set of particular formal design issues. So in this case, we'll see examples of things like being attentive to the use of natural or artificial light, using color symbolically to create a mood that supports the content of the piece, thinking carefully about the point of view of the viewer. Are they located directly in front of the action in the painting? Or are they perhaps viewing the scene from above, like a camera mounted in the ceiling? Does it appear that the viewer is actually in the room with the characters in the painting? Or is the viewer possibly looking through a window from the outside of the home? Does the visual story appear to be far away, or is it up close and very personal? How is color affected by the lighting or temperature that is portrayed? Are the characters in darkness, or is it extremely light? Is it cold or extremely hot? These are the types of things that each student needs to consider before and during the process of making the painting. Then we talk about it during the formal critique. And because they have all had the same set of perimeters, it is easy for them to discuss the work. They are all interpreting the problem in their own way, and they're all responding to the prompts in their own way, which makes them qualified to critically evaluate each other's paintings because of their shared experience. As I stated in the beginning, we undoubtedly have one of the top painting undergraduate programs in the country. I have found over the 20 years I have taught at UCF that the students demand a good education. They work hard, they are ambitious, and they make work that is sophisticated, emotional, intellectual, sometimes frightening, sometimes humorous. They are taught to engage with a larger audience of potential art lovers and collectors, and they, year after year, meet that challenge.
Hello again, this is Professor Tommy James again from UCF Architecture. It is my great honor and pleasure to present you three very talented young ladies in the senior class of UCF Architecture this year. They're going to be presenting a project from D7, which is in the Creative Village. Maite?
Good evening, my name is Maite Bruno, and with my classmates Denise Munoz and Valeria Ormo, we're going to present the D7 project, which is about the Creative Village and the Paramore community. To start off, the Paramore community has faced social and economic challenge throughout its history. They were forced to tolerate a corresponding lack of city services and local business that at one point created a sense of place and identity. Significant investments have been made in the community infrastructure and housing, but these efforts could fall short unless this African-American-based community can reestablish not only its identity, but also reconnect to its past cultural heritage. After meeting with some residents, it became clear for us that the community needs to find again their historic and cultural identity, as it increases also the civic engagement where visitors and residents can celebrate that sense of place again. For this reason, we are proposing to embrace the culture and opportunities for the community by the use of blending and rebuilding within programs, but also with the skin. Now, getting more into the design, the form started to be analyzed where we aim to soften the edge of the west side linked to the Paramore side, so it can be more inviting for the occupants when they go in there. And the skin study comes after, where the idea of blending and rebuilding was analyzed through different iterations. But the one that we followed through with was inspired by the chevron textile, which is an African-American pattern blended with the vertical grain skin that follows the Creative Village language. To take it into a step further, we look at how it will blend with the solid, but also how it will touch the ground. And before creating the final form, we also observe and analyze how much sunlight the building will receive throughout the day, not only with the psychometric chart, but also with the climate data analysis, which led us into creating a shading device to increase not only the comfort of outdoor spaces, but also the ones in the indoor, which also introduced us like a vertical greenery for cooling effects. Finally, the diagram focuses on creating a central circulation gesture that leads you into the main gathering space where the skin and the programs are blended and revealed. The west side is where the culture and recreational programs are, while the east is where the academics and the residentials are.
This all led us into our finalized proposal of a mixed-use building where we aim to preserve, enhance, and celebrate the community's culture and opportunities. For our site, we analyzed the program connectivity, visual expansion, circulation, and sunlight hours. From this analysis, we noticed that there is a need for a bus stop, so we decided to place one on the west side of the intervention. At a closer look, we used the landscape and water features to direct the occupant towards the entrances, as well as to guide you into the main central void, and a split-level entrance that connects you into the bus stops. The first floor of occupation is mostly open air in order to break the scale of the tower, attract new visitors, and be more inviting for the community. The programs located on the west side are retail from local Paramore businesses and the basketball court, which is one of the main programs of the existing recreational center. The second floor is mostly commercial and includes the remaining programs that the current recreational center offers, but in a limited space. The third plan of occupation is where the blending of the academic, retail, corporate, and residential programs occurs. These programs blend with each other because they represent community growth and development. The fourth floor is a continuation of the third floor, but with a rooftop meeting space that expands the site towards the Central Park and Paramore. And finally, the typical corporate floor plan includes programs for Paramore that provides assistance with mental and physical health through affordable clinics. Now going into a more 3D perspective, this is our first section that shows the directionality to the center space, which gets connected by the incubator program. And this is where the murals made by the Paramore community get revealed to both inside and outside. The focus of the second section is shown not only the horizontal connectivity, but also the vertical connection of programs. This is shown on the academic and residential side, where the skin comes into the space to create an interaction with the occupants.
So moving on, we will now focus on the two main entrances to the building. So the first one is on the north side, where the overhead is actually exaggerated in order to create an inviting and shared access point. It is important to mention that this entrance has an angle facing the Central Park to react to that future development and create engagement. The west entrance is lowered, marking an open-air entrance that can invite visitors to experience that cultural programs that are dedicated to that Paramore community. These programs are being enhanced by being pushed out and designed to be welcoming for the human scale. These entrances both lead you into the main central gathering space where the skin falls down in order to create an inviting seating areas and shading that will provide that dynamic lighting. To further improve that shading, greenery is being placed on the skin as a reaction to the comfort analysis. Not only that, but from this main civic space, programs are being revealed in order to create that visual interaction as well. And it is in this area, but in the north side, where the skin decomposes in order to reveal those programs. And when it actually touches the ground, it provides a more protected pathway on the sidewalk for pedestrians. It also interacts directly with the occupant, changing the experience during the night and also during the day. Now, this is a render of the terrace where the skin interacts directly with the occupants, while still providing shading comfort. Now, shifting on into the interior experience, since this space is mostly open air, the main stairs are being placed here. So it reveals not only that programs, but it also frames the sky as you go up in order to create an experiential circulation. This leads you into one of the main entrances of the cultural library. And this proposal emphasizes that idea of creating not the typical library concept, but an actual gathering space that includes an opportunity for developmental programs. And now as you move left of the image, the skin will guide you into the exit of the library and the beginning of the incubators. And now on the incubator side, this is where the Paramore murals are actually being displayed and revealed to the interior of the building, but also to the exterior of the building. And finally, as you exit the incubators, you will enter one of the academic meeting spaces that shows you one of the vertical void connections that we previously mentioned.
Overall, this proposal focuses on creating a vibrant community with opportunities for growth while preserving, enhancing, and celebrating the culture and heritage of Paramore. It aims to create a community that is safe, affordable, mixed-use, diverse in population and income, walkable to celebrate its unique identity and sense of place through the use of blending, but also through the use of revealing. Thanks for hearing us and giving this time to share out this project for you.
Hi, my name is Gabe Cortese. I'm a figurative painter and draftsman. I create work about my identity. I think it's super important to own my identity and to work through these compositions by thinking about how those have shaped my life. So this exhibition actually has two bodies of work that kind of work in unison together. It's kind of like a continuous narrative, and that's usually how I work in my practice, is creating compositions and then building off of those compositions and then kind of creating these narratives that are loose and that are kind of tangential in a way. So like in this work, this is kind of the first work that I began that kind of begins this idea or this body of work. It's called Collision. It's from a body of work called Crushers, Pluckers, and it incorporates my idea and my understanding of my cultural identity as a Puerto Rican Argentinian man and the cultural references of soccer and the significance of male excellency. So in a way, I subvert those by creating these kind of erotic images of these men colliding into each other. And it really began the thought process of what is this world, who are these men, and what happens as they kind of move through their life when they're no longer on this field anymore with this kind of symbolic chain link fence that's surrounding them. But what happens when they enter the domestic space, like when they're in their backyard now in this like celebratory kind of dance around a fire, this heat and desire that's starting to exude from their bodies. So they become flamboyant in a way and serpentine, as if their bodies themselves are the fire. And then further kind of exploring the possibilities of the space. Then this piece commune, it's called Sobre Mesa, right? Them being around this table and communing in a bunch of different ways with different expressions, almost as if this is the same character and it's an extended character study of what this figure can do in space. So like you can see there's pairings, these two men over here kind of engaging in a conversation across in the left-hand corner. And this man in the front left-hand corner kind of focused on replicating this daisy, on drawing this daisy. And in this piece, I started to develop a list of characters, kind of like characters that could be a part of this narrative, not just the figures, but the symbols themselves and how they can hold meaning. Like the dessert fork, the plucked daisy, the plates, the forks, the knives, and the candlestick. that's slowly kind of starting to melt and drift down onto the table. Leading me to this piece here that references religion, it references the subversion of altarpiece painting, for further exploring really the space, the room now. What happens when the figure goes to sleep and what does he look like? I think in this work, the idea of being able to laugh at yourself, the idea of comedy, humility, and vulnerability are super important. And it's something that I really like to tackle in all of the work, really, to talk about my identity as a gay man, to talk about love, to talk about vulnerability with another human. All right, thanks again for joining me on this tour. My name's Gabe, and I hope you enjoyed Paper House.
Hello, my name is Danielle Kaliba-Powell, and I am a visual artist who focuses on painting and collage. And I primarily make work about the collision of different cultures and transcultural experiences within their home. I speak primarily to the experiences of Filipino immigrants and the children of Filipino immigrants. So in all of my paintings, there is this combination of elements from the past, the present, and the future, because I like to address multiple narratives within a piece. I'm always dealing with some form of family iconography, and I'm also dealing with symbols that combine both American culture and Filipino culture in my paintings. I like to use paintings within paintings. I like to use figures in my work that exist on multiple different realities. So this painting is about feeling like you don't belong in a space that should be yours, which is, I think, an experience that is very common amongst second-generation American immigrants. So for this piece, I placed a couple at the center of kind of clashing realities. So in this bottom half of the painting, they're situated in a domestic space in a bed that is too small to hold them. And then as your eye travels up, you see that the sky opens up and there are a canopy of trees against a makeshift Filipino building. So here, questions that come up whenever I think of this painting are, is this about fantasy, or is this about reality? Is this about confinement, or is this about freedom? Most of my work, I'm hoping to provoke more questions than provide answers. In this work, called Mother-in-Law's Tongue, I'm able to combine all of my conceptual interests into one piece. I have patterns that are vaguely reminiscent of Filipino traditional textiles, which alludes to my wrestle with my Filipino identity, feeling like an imposter in my own culture. But I've also addressed domestic issues in my life as well. Here I have my trans-cultural marriage between my husband and I. And then also I'm alluding to the marriage of my parents that I hold in such a high regard. This work is important because it's the first time that I've placed an open window leading to the outside world in a painting. In every other painting here, the world is confined to an interior. And so for me, this was a big step forward because it's like me giving myself permission to deal with a new sliver of the world. I'm always interested in cultural issues. I'm always interested in domesticity. But I think this was a landmark painting in that it allowed me, again, gave me permission to deal with something new should I desire to do so. Thank you so much for doing this walkthrough with me. My name, again, is Danielle Kaliba-Powell, and this is from the Paper House MFA exhibition.
Hi, my name is Tim, and I am part of the Paper House Master of Fine Arts Thesis Exhibition. And this is some of my work. I am really interested in figuring out how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So a number of the threads that have led me there is understanding this idea of cognitive dissonance, which is the idea that when one encounters new information that contradicts things that we know or believe from the past, it's psychologically uncomfortable to deal with that new information. And as I have seen that happen in my own life, and through the process of self-reflection and through my creative practice, trying to figure out how to be okay in those places where I don't have answers to questions. And so that's where a lot of my work comes from, is intentionally provoking a feeling of uncomfortableness in the audience and also in myself in making it. I talk about things that are kind of intimate or personal and make them public. Some of the pieces that are here in the show include these sets of diptychs. These pages are made out of towels. So in 2018, we found out that my wife had pancreatic cancer. And when she died in 2019 from cancer, I had to figure out what to do with my life and what to do with my art. And she also was an artist. And so one of the things that I chose to do is use materials that she left behind to make the work, where I was processing my grief and my confusion and my frustration and anger and all of the things that happen after losing somebody. And so these paper pieces are made from her towels. She was making paper from towels before she died, and so I used her leftover paper pulp and made some of my own, and then I impressed these different phrases onto the page that are meant to show the difference between how she viewed life and how I viewed life, both as a celebration of who she was and also as a motivation for me to be willing to change the way that I think about things. And so, along with these paper pieces is the projection. And this projection has a similar feel to it in terms of intimate statements made publicly. But she had an overhead projector that she was using for some of her work, and so I printed these statements out on transparencies. And then I used her tea timer because she loved tea, and used that to time how long each statement would stay on the projector. So each statement stays on for about 5 minutes. And one of the things that I chose to do, at least in this implementation of this piece, is to let it run for the whole time. It's about 32 minutes. And knowing that most people are not going to stand in front of a screen, that not much is happening for that long. And so the idea that things don't get answered is very important to me, because I think for me personally, being able to release the need to get an answer has allowed me to have more freedom to try things, both personally and artistically. This last piece is interactive in that as somebody walks in, because the cameras that are in here are live, they are showing images on these screens. The motivation behind this piece was to try to figure out how to take these internal things that I was dealing with and see if there was a way that other people could actually encounter those same questions without me telling them what it was. And so this piece, you cannot see your face when you step into this room because of the way the cameras are configured. And so to me, that speaks to how difficult self-reflection actually is. But if you step in here with a partner or with a couple of friends, there's ways that you can see each other. But you still never can see yourself, and so you need that community in order to experience it completely. All right. Well, thank you for walking with me on this tour. Again, my name is Tim, and I'm part of the MFA in Studio Art and Design. Thanks for coming to Paper House.
Hi, my name is Nat Tohar. I am in the MFA program for Studio Art and Design, and my work is currently on display here at Paper House. My work uses food to explore my cultural identity as well as my personal histories. I explore different subjects such as loss, objectification, transculturation, as well as the current pandemic. And I use food as a kind of metaphor for it all. I basically embrace my passion of being a professional pastry chef, and that career really informs how I approach painting food. Since I've worked, I know the physicality of it, I understand it, and so I'm able to now transfer it onto a two-dimensional surface for visual indulgence as opposed to actually eating them like I used to do before. So this piece right here is actually part of my the pandemic paintings that I was working on, and so I was really trying to showcase the idea of being confined to space and unable to leave, and that kind of claustrophobia that at least I felt during the pandemic.
or the very beginning of the pandemic especially, since I wasn't able to leave my home. And so I really wanted to portray that with paint. And so I chose chicken meat because chicken meat's kind of gross and not really appealing. And so I felt like, just like the pandemic, it was something that wasn't appealing. Nobody wants to be a part of it. So this piece in particular has to do with transculturation. And so before this piece could be created, I unfortunately had to deal with the loss of my last direct connection to Cuba, which is my cultural background. I chose to display food in a way where it was how it would be displayed at a feast that we would have for Noche Buena, which is Christmas Eve. And so throughout, this is kind of my observations of how transculturation has been applied to my life. And so I made sure when creating this still life and these pieces that I included both American and Cuban dishes, as well as a painting of Cuba that my grandmother had painted, photographed nudged into the corner, as well as the snuffed candle in order to identify that loss that I was trying to show in this piece. Once again, my name is Annette Tohar, and thank you for joining me on this walkthrough through Paper House, through the MFA show.